In the year 2045, Greg Thompson's life was about to change forever. As Earth's ambassador to the Zenari Empire, he found himself in the presence of 4 alien princesses who openly mocked humanity. Little did he know that the dying wish of their king would thrust him into a whirlwind of power, politics, and unexpected relationships. The Zenari Empire, led by the formidable King Eldrin Zyner, had made its presence known through their massive mothership, a sleek metallic vessel that floated majestically in orbit. It served as a stark reminder of the technological gulf between Earth and the advanced civilization. During the initial meeting with Earth's leaders, Greg maintained a brave front, despite the teasing laughter of Princesses Aria, Selene, Sara, and Kira echoing in the Grand Conference Hall. They derided Earth's primitive technology and societal structures, their laughter ringing with disdain. While most would have felt diminished, King Eldrin recognized potential where others saw only weakness. Over the ensuing weeks, Greg's sharp intellect and adaptability began to catch the attention of the king and his trusted advisor, Raxel, a wise Zenari with shimmering violet skin. Unbeknownst to the gathered court, King Eldrin was suffering from a rare, degenerative illness. As his health declined, he made a fateful decision that would shock both Earth and the Zenari Empire to its core. He modified his will to include Greg as a potential heir, a move that would forever alter the balance of power. The day of reckoning came during a lavish state dinner aboard the mothership. As King Eldrin collapsed, his last act triggered a hidden protocol within the ship's systems. A holographic message materialized, revealing the king's last wishes. Greg Thompson was named the inheritor of vast Zenari wealth, advanced technology, and the guardianship of the 4 princesses. The stipulation was simple yet profound. Greg must marry one of the princesses within a year to claim the Zenari throne. Panic rippled through the room as human and Zenari leaders grappled with the implications. Chaos erupted as Chancellor Draylen, a towering figure with glistening green scales and piercing orange eyes, declared, "This is absurd. A human cannot rule the Zenari Empire." Greg's mind raced, processing the gravity of the situation. He glanced at the 4 princesses, their expressions shifting from amusement to shock and confusion. Raxel stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on Greg's shoulder. "The king's will is clear. We must respect his final wishes." With that, the stage was set for a saga of political intrigue, cultural clashes, and unexpected alliances. Greg was now at the center of an interstellar power struggle, navigating resentment and suspicion from both his fellow humans and the alien nobility. Days turned into a whirlwind of activity as Greg was sequestered in a luxurious suite aboard the mothership, flanked by a team of Zenari tutors handpicked by Raxel. As news of the king's shocking declaration spread across the galaxy, Greg received a priority communication from Earth's Secretary General, Elena Rodriguez. Her holographic image flickered to life. "Mr. Thompson, you must understand the gravity of your position. The Security Council is in an uproar. Some see this as our chance among the stars, while others fear it will make us a target for hostile alien factions." "I understand, Madam Secretary," Greg replied, feeling the weight of responsibility settle firmly on his shoulders. "I'm doing my best to navigate the situation, but I need time." As their communication ended, Raxel entered the room, announcing, "It's time for your first lesson in Zenari technology." Greg was introduced to concepts that seemed straight out of science fiction. Faster-than-light travel, advanced AI systems, and energy sources capable of powering entire solar systems. His military background helped him grasp the strategic implications quickly, and he mused, this FTL drive could revolutionize Earth's space exploration programs. Raxel nodded, cautioning, "Not all Zenari will be eager to share our advancements with humans." As Greg immersed himself in his studies, he noticed a marked change in the princess's attitudes. Aria, once openly contemptuous, began seeking him out to discuss Earth's history. "Tell me about your world wars," she asked one evening, her silver eyes gleaming with curiosity. Greg found himself surprised by her interest and engagement in human geopolitics. Selene, the second eldest, took a more direct approach. She burst into his quarters one morning, brandishing 2 Zenari training weapons. "If you're to rule us, you must prove your worth in combat," she declared. What followed were grueling physical contests that pushed Greg to his limits, earning him grudging respect from Selene. Meanwhile, Sara, the 3rd princess, challenged him intellectually. She presented him with complex Zenari technological puzzles, watching him intently as he worked through them. "Impressive," she remarked one day as Greg recalibrated a malfunctioning quantum communications array. "Perhaps there's hope for you yet." The youngest princess, Kira, remained an enigma, often observing Greg from a distance with an inscrutable expression. While navigating these complex relationships, a sense of unease began to grow within Greg. Whispers of conspiracy echoed around him, overheard conversations, encrypted messages, and the sudden redeployment of Zenari warships suggested that not all was well. One restless night, Greg decided to put his newfound knowledge to the test. He accessed a secure terminal in his quarters, using the skills Raxel had taught him to bypass encryption. What he uncovered chilled him: plans for a full-scale invasion of Earth, orchestrated by General Drakor, a high-ranking Zenari military leader known for his hardline stance against interspecies cooperation. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Greg understood he couldn't fight this battle alone. He needed allies both on the mothership and back on Earth. As he formulated a plan to counter the impending threat, a priority alert flashed across his terminal, signaling that time was running out. The fate of humanity and the Zenari Empire now hung in the balance, and Greg was determined to turn the tables on those who underestimated him. The once derisive princesses might just become his most valuable allies in this galactic power struggle. The alarm blared in Greg Thompson's quarters, pulling him from a restless sleep. The glow of the holographic display illuminated the room, revealing an urgent message from Raxel. "Meet me in the war room immediately. We have a crisis." He leapt from bed, heart racing, and quickly donned a sleek Zenari uniform that had been provided for him. As he made his way through the ship's corridors, the metallic walls seemed to hum with tension. The crew members he passed wore serious expressions, their usually vibrant scales dimmed with anxiety. Entering the war room, Greg found Raxel surrounded by holographic projections of the Zenari military and strategic maps of Earth. The princesses were already gathered around the table: Aria, Selene, Sara, and Kira, each with a look that conveyed a mix of concern and determination. "Thank you for coming," Raxel said, his violet skin glimmering under the overhead lights. "We have received troubling intelligence. General Drakor is mobilizing forces for an invasion. He believes the current political chaos presents a prime opportunity to assert Zenari dominance over Earth and invalidate King Eldrin's will." "Can't we just appeal to the High Council?" Greg asked, desperation creeping into his voice. "Surely they would see the folly in this plan?" Selene stepped forward, her expression fierce. "The High Council is divided, Greg. Many still view humans as inferior. Drakor has powerful allies who believe an invasion will solidify their control over the Empire." Sara crossed her arms, glancing at her sisters. "We need to counter this plan before it's too late. We can't let our father's vision be destroyed by those who seek to undermine it." "I agree," Aria said, her silver eyes narrowing with resolve. "But how do we stop an invasion? We don't have the military power to confront Drakor's forces head-on." "Perhaps not," Raxel interjected, "but we can gather intelligence, find allies within the Empire, and prepare the humans on Earth for what is to come." Greg nodded, feeling the weight of leadership settle on his shoulders. "Then we need to devise a plan. If we can convince some of the High Council to support us, we might have a chance." Kira, who had been quiet up until now, spoke softly but firmly. "We should reach out to those who still believe in peace between our species. There are members of the Council who respected King Eldrin and his wishes. They may be willing to help us if we can present a united front." "That's a good idea," Greg replied, heartened by Kira's suggestion. "We need to find a way to communicate with them without drawing attention from Drakor's faction. We can use the ship's encrypted channels, but we have to be discreet." Raxel nodded approvingly. "I'll coordinate with the ship's communication officers. In the meantime, you 4 princesses will need to prepare your arguments. We must convince the Council that supporting Greg and the peace between our races is the only viable path forward." As the group dispersed to begin their preparations, Greg felt a sense of urgency wash over him. The clock was ticking, and the fate of both Earth and the Zenari Empire rested on their shoulders. He turned to the princesses, his gaze meeting Aria's. "Thank you for standing with me," he said earnestly. "I know our history is complicated, but I believe we can find common ground." "Let's just hope it doesn't come to war," Selene replied, her voice tinged with concern. "We don't want innocent lives lost because of a few power-hungry individuals." Kira's expression remained thoughtful. We should also consider the possibility of going to Earth for support. If we can show our commitment to peace and unity, it might sway public opinion on both sides. I can arrange a communication link to Earth, Greg offered. If we can rally the humans, we may create enough pressure to influence the council. The group agreed, and Greg returned to his quarters, determined to strategize. He pulled up the encrypted communication terminal and began drafting a message to Secretary General Elena Rodriguez. He needed her to understand the gravity of the situation without causing panic. Subject: urgent, the threat of invasion. Dear Madam Secretary, I hope this message finds you well. I must inform you of a grave situation that has arisen within the Zenari Empire. General Drakor, a powerful military leader, is mobilizing forces for an invasion of Earth. His faction believes that the current instability will allow them to assert dominance over our planet and undermine King Eldrin's last wishes. We need your help. If we can mobilize public support on Earth, we may be able to influence the High Council and prevent this catastrophic conflict. I urge you to consider this matter with the utmost urgency. We must present a united front to ensure the survival of both our peoples. Yours sincerely, Greg Thompson. He sent the message, feeling the weight of the moment. With the fate of both Earth and the Zenari Empire in his hands, Greg couldn't help but wonder if he was truly ready for the challenge that lay ahead. Later that evening, Greg was summoned to a meeting with the princesses and Raxel. They gathered in the war room, where the tension in the air was palpable. Drakor is not a fool, Raxel warned. He will be watching our movements closely. If we're going to outsmart him, we need to think several steps ahead. Let's turn his own tactics against him, Aria suggested, her silver eyes gleaming with mischief. If he's plotting an invasion, we can use that to our advantage. We can stage a mock preparation for war to draw his attention away from our real efforts. That could work, Greg agreed, his mind racing with possibilities. If we create the illusion of a significant military buildup, it might distract him long enough for us to gather support. Selene smirked, a newfound spark in her demeanor. I like it. We can have the fleet conduct drills and prepare for maneuvers. It will give the impression of readiness, and Drakor will be compelled to respond. The plan solidified among them, and Greg felt a surge of confidence. He wasn't just a human caught in an alien world anymore. He was part of a team, an alliance forged from necessity and a shared vision for peace. As they began discussing the logistics of their deception, Greg felt a sense of hope rise within him. If they could outsmart Drakor and secure the support they needed, perhaps they could prevent war and carve a new future for both their peoples. Together, they would turn the tide of this interstellar struggle and transform derision into diplomacy. Little did they know, Drakor was already watching their every move, and the clock was ticking down to a confrontation that could change everything. The tension aboard the Zenari mothership reached a fever pitch as Greg Thompson and the four princesses finalized their plans to thwart General Drakor's impending invasion. Each day brought new challenges, and Greg felt the weight of his dual role as both a human ambassador and an unexpected heir to the Zenari throne. As they prepared for their ruse, Greg spent his evenings training with Raxel and honing his understanding of Zenari combat techniques and strategy. He was determined to earn the respect of the princesses, not just as their future ruler but as an ally. Meanwhile, the princesses trained him on the intricacies of Zenari culture, governance, and diplomacy. One evening, after an intense training session, Greg found himself in a quiet corner of the ship with Sara. She was sitting on a sleek, metallic bench, staring out at the stars through a transparent observation window. Her expression was pensive, and for a moment, he simply admired her beauty, her shimmering skin reflecting the cosmic light, her silver hair cascading like liquid starlight. "Sara," he said, taking a seat beside her, "what's on your mind?" She sighed, her gaze still fixed on the distant stars. "I worry about what will happen if we succeed in rallying support against Drakor. There are factions within the Zenari Empire that may not accept a human ruler, even if the High Council does." Greg nodded, understanding the complexity of the situation. "I know. But we have to focus on the immediate threat first. Once we stabilize the Empire, we can work on changing perceptions." Sara turned to him, her silver eyes searching his face. "You're not like the others, Greg. You've shown resilience and courage. It's admirable, but this is uncharted territory for us all." "I'm just trying to do what's right," he replied earnestly. I believe in the vision King Eldrin had for a united future between our species. But I can't do it alone. Sara smiled softly, and for a moment, Greg felt a connection between them, something deeper than mere alliance. But before he could explore that feeling further, Raxel entered, disrupting their conversation. "Apologies for interrupting," he said, his tone serious. "We have received intelligence that Drakor is moving troops into position. He's aware of our preparations and may act sooner than we anticipated." Greg's heart raced. "What do we do?" "We need to accelerate our plans," Raxel stated. "The High Council is convening tomorrow. We must present a united front and gather enough support before Drakor makes his move." As the group gathered around the holographic table, Greg took a deep breath, preparing himself for the role he needed to play. "We'll need to emphasize the strength of a united Earth and Zenari. I'll speak to the Council, but I'll need all of your support. If we can show them that we can work together, we may stand a chance." The princesses nodded, their expressions resolute. They began strategizing on how to present their case, outlining the benefits of a cooperative future between Earth and the Zenari Empire. With every idea that flowed, Greg felt the bond between them strengthening. The following day, as the High Council convened, Greg stood at the head of a grand chamber, its high ceilings adorned with shimmering crystals that refracted light in mesmerizing patterns. The council members, a mix of Zenari dignitaries with iridescent scales and regal attire, filled the seats before him. Among them, Chancellor Draylen sat, his expression dark and calculating. "Welcome, esteemed members of the council," Greg began, trying to suppress the nerves dancing in his stomach. "I stand before you not just as a human, but as a potential ruler of this great empire. King Eldrin wished for unity between our peoples, and I believe now is the time to fulfill that vision." A murmur spread through the room, a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. He spotted Aria, Selene, Sara, and Kira standing behind him, their presence lending him strength. "General Drakor seeks to divide us," Greg continued, raising his voice. "He believes that by invading Earth, he can assert Zenari superiority. But I ask you, what does that achieve? A war would only lead to chaos and suffering on both sides. Instead, we must unite. Together, we can forge a new path, one that embraces our differences and allows us to thrive." Chancellor Draylen rose, his scales shimmering ominously. "And why should we trust a human, Greg Thompson? You are an outsider in our world. Your kind has not proven themselves worthy of leadership." "Trust must be earned," Greg replied firmly. "But I believe my presence here, alongside the princesses, is a testament to my commitment. We have the opportunity to show the galaxy that unity is stronger than division. Let us not squander it." The council members exchanged glances, and Greg felt a flicker of hope. Just as he was about to continue, a voice interrupted him from the back of the chamber. "Enough of this nonsense." It was General Drakor, striding forward with an air of authority. "You think you can sway the council with flowery words? Your kind has always been a threat to our empire. Do not forget the history that stains your world with blood." Gasps echoed through the chamber, and Greg felt his heart sink. He knew that the past would be a formidable adversary, but he refused to back down. "The past does not define us," Greg retorted. "It is our choices now that will shape the future. The king entrusted me with this responsibility, and I will not let fear dictate our fate. We can learn from our history and move forward together." General Drakor's expression hardened. "Then let us see how strong your resolve truly is. If you believe you can unite the Zenari and humans, I challenge you to a public trial of strength. Prove that you are worthy of your position, or I will ensure you never sit upon the throne." Gasps rippled through the room again. Greg's heart raced as he felt the eyes of the council members upon him. This was more than a challenge. It was a power play that could shatter everything he had worked for. "Very well," Greg replied, trying to sound resolute. "I accept your challenge. But know this. My strength lies not just in physical prowess, but in the alliances I've built with the princesses and the people of Earth." The atmosphere aboard the Zenari mothership crackled with tension after Greg accepted General Drakor's challenge. The High Council chamber echoed with whispers, some in disbelief, others in anticipation. Greg felt the weight of every gaze upon him as he prepared to face an opponent who was not only a military leader but also a symbol of the old guard resistant to change. After the council adjourned, Greg returned to his quarters, where the princesses awaited him. They were a mixture of concern and resolve, their expressions revealing how deeply they understood the stakes involved. "Greg, you didn't have to accept that challenge," Aria said, her brow furrowed. "Drakor is a seasoned warrior. This could be dangerous." "I understand the risks," Greg replied, pacing the room. "But if I back down now, it will only weaken my position and undermine everything we're trying to achieve. If I want the council to trust me, I must show them I can stand up to Drakor." Selene stepped forward, her gaze steady. "We will stand by you, no matter the outcome. We're in this together." "Right," Greg said, nodding appreciatively. "But I need to train. I don't want to embarrass myself in front of the council, or worse, lose the respect of the princesses." Sara smiled, a glimmer of hope in her silver eyes. "You've trained hard with Raxel. You have what it takes. But remember, it's not just about physical strength. You need to use your strategic mind as well." "Exactly," Kira chimed in. "Think of it as a chess game. Use your intelligence and adaptability to outmaneuver Drakor. You may not match him in brute strength, but you can outthink him." The determination in their voices fueled Greg's resolve. "All right, let's focus on what I can do to prepare for this trial." The next morning, Greg began his intensive training regimen with Raxel. They utilized the ship's impressive training facilities, which were equipped with advanced technology that simulated various combat scenarios. Raxel's guidance was invaluable. His years of experience allowed Greg to hone his combat skills quickly. Remember, Raxel instructed during one sparring session, Drakor is not just a fighter, he's a tactician. He will try to exploit any weakness. Stay light on your feet and anticipate his moves. Greg nodded, feeling the sweat bead on his forehead as they sparred. He ducked under Raxel's sweeping strike and countered with a swift jab, but Raxel was too quick, sidestepping the blow with a laugh. "Good. But you must also think ahead. Predict his moves. If you can keep him guessing, you'll have the upper hand." As the hours passed, Greg's confidence grew. He practiced various techniques, absorbing Raxel's wisdom and advice. During breaks, he discussed strategies with the princesses, who each brought their unique insights into their culture's fighting styles. "Remember to use your surroundings," Selene advised one afternoon. "In Zenari combat, the environment can be your greatest ally. Use the terrain to your advantage." Finally, the day of the trial arrived. The Grand Arena, a massive open space filled with spectators from both the Zenari Empire and Earth, had been prepared for the challenge. A massive domed structure loomed above, pulsating with vibrant colors that shifted with the energy of the crowd. Greg stood at the entrance, clad in a sleek combat suit that offered both flexibility and protection. His heart raced as he surveyed the arena. The cheers and shouts of the spectators created an electric atmosphere. Princesses Aria, Selene, Sara, and Kira stood by the sidelines, their expressions a mix of pride and concern. "Just remember," Sara said, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder, "it's not just about winning. It's about showing them you are worthy of leadership. Fight with honor." With a nod, Greg stepped forward, his resolve hardening. Across the arena, General Drakor awaited him, his imposing figure silhouetted against the vibrant backdrop. His iridescent scales shimmered ominously, and a confident smirk danced on his lips. "Are you ready to face your fate, human?" Drakor called out, his voice booming across the arena. "Let's see if you can back up your words." "I'm ready," Greg replied, his voice steady. "Let's begin." As the announcer declared the start of the trial, the energy in the arena surged. Drakor lunged forward, his movements fluid and powerful. Greg instinctively sidestepped, narrowly avoiding a crushing blow. He felt the rush of air as Drakor's fist grazed his arm, the force nearly knocking him off balance. Relying on the training he had undergone, Greg maintained his composure and focused on the techniques he'd learned. He pivoted away from Drakor's next strike, using the momentum to counterattack with a low kick aimed at Drakor's knee. The general stumbled slightly but quickly regained his footing, retaliating with a series of rapid punches. The crowd roared, their excitement palpable. Greg's heart raced as he ducked and dodged, sweat pouring down his brow. He couldn't let the pressure overwhelm him. He had to think strategically. Remembering Raxel's advice, he analyzed Drakor's patterns, searching for openings. With each exchange, he became more attuned to his opponent's movements, waiting for the right moment to strike. Drakor lunged again, but this time, Greg anticipated the move. As the general reached for him, Greg pivoted and executed a quick elbow strike to Drakor's midsection. The impact forced a grunt from Drakor, but the general quickly recovered, anger flickering in his eyes. "Not bad for a human," Drakor sneered, wiping sweat from his brow. "But you'll need more than luck to defeat me." As the fight progressed, Greg felt his stamina waning. He could sense that Drakor was still holding back, waiting for an opportunity to finish the fight. The crowd's energy surged, a cacophony of cheers and gasps echoing through the arena. Drakor charged at Greg, his fists swinging wildly. Greg ducked and dodged, using his agility to evade the blows. Then he noticed an opening, a brief moment when Drakor overextended himself. With a burst of determination, Greg seized the opportunity and executed a sweeping kick that sent the general sprawling to the ground. Gasps filled the arena, and for a fleeting moment, Greg felt a rush of exhilaration. But Drakor was quick to rise, anger blazing in his eyes. "You think you can defeat me with cheap tricks? I will show you true strength." Drakor charged again, but this time, Greg was ready. He utilized the techniques he had learned, anticipating Drakor's movements. The two fighters engaged in a flurry of strikes, each blow echoing through the arena. Greg felt himself pushed to his limits, but he refused to back down. As they exchanged blows, Greg's mind raced with strategies, recalling every lesson he had learned. He focused on the weaknesses he had observed in Drakor's fighting style. Finally, he saw it. Drakor relied too heavily on his brute strength, often leaving himself open to counterattacks. With renewed resolve, Greg waited for Drakor to make his next move. As the general lunged forward, Greg sidestepped and used his momentum against him. He pivoted and caught Drakor off balance, sending the general crashing to the ground once more. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Greg knew the fight wasn't over. Drakor quickly regained his footing, a fierce determination etched on his face. "You may have luck on your side, but you will not defeat me." He charged once more, this time with a ferocity that took Greg by surprise. The intensity of the blows rattled him, and he struggled to keep his defenses up. Greg realized he was on the verge of exhaustion. He had to end this quickly. Drawing on everything he had learned, Greg made a risky move. He feigned a retreat, baiting Drakor into thinking he had the upper hand. As Drakor lunged, Greg executed a swift spinning kick that connected squarely with the general's chest. The force of the strike sent Drakor crashing to the ground, and he didn't get up. The arena fell silent, the cheers of the crowd replaced by an almost palpable shock. Greg stood, panting heavily, as the reality of his victory sank in. He had done it. As the announcer declared him the winner, Greg looked toward the princesses, who erupted in cheers, their faces alight with pride. The energy in the arena shifted, and for the first time, Greg felt like he had truly earned his place among them. But amidst the celebration, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. General Drakor's defeat was a significant victory, but the true battle lay ahead. In the shadows of the arena, alliances were still being forged and threats loomed, ready to strike when least expected. And as the cheers echoed around him, Greg knew he had to be ready for whatever came next.